What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 6 college football predictions. And as always, I got my guy Ty joining us here to break down this week's biggest games. But before we do that, we got to talk about last week. And I went 4-2. You went 2-4. Pittsburgh, Louisville game just missed on that under. And then the Kansas Cincy game, obviously Kansas lost that one, so didn't get the win there. But Notre Dame smokes Arkansas. Rutgers barely covers. Iowa State blows out Arizona, and Oregon obviously won that one, so they cover for me.
Yeah, another rough week for me back to the drawing board. And Indiana struggled through the Iowa game. I should have known that was just the ultimate trap game. And then BYU, I went to bed and they were looking good. Must have got backdoor covered in that one. And then, I mean, Arkansas just never had a chance. I don't know what I saw there. And congrats to Ole Miss. They're a lot better than I thought they were.
Yeah, and then we'll look at the results from last week. Obviously, I went 8-4, got one more on you. The biggest things for us, we were both wrong on three games: Georgia, the USC game, and Florida State. And then obviously, I got my advantage there, picking Ole Miss and Oregon. But the game that I think we're going to talk about here, that I'm going to talk about and highlight, is a game that no one talked about. Two games. It's going to be Texas A&M and Auburn. A&M showed that their defense can play really good when they need to. I think Auburn went 0 for 13 it was on third down in this game. So, the defense shows up in this one when the offense has a sluggish night in Marcel Reed and company. And so they showed out, got a huge win there. And same goes for Indiana. That's where ranked teams go to die in Iowa. And they found a way to pull out a gritty win there to really keep this team, in that mix for possibly a top 10, seed and ranking in the AP poll probably for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'd say one of the underrated winners of this crazy week was Notre Dame because they come out in a game a lot of people had them on upset alert and they just run Arkansas off the field completely. And really the only team posing a threat on their schedule is USC. Then you watch them go out to Illinois and lose, a team that just got hammered by Indiana. So I think 10-2, the dream is alive for Notre Dame. And as more of these SEC teams pick each other off, I think that is slowly going to become good enough for them to sneak into the playoff even after starting 0-2.
And then we'll jump to this week. We got week 6 in our locks. I'm going Iowa State, getting the point and a half against Cincy. I think they're probably going to win that one outright. Clemson, UNC under 46 and a half. Neither of these offenses have showed that they can score 24 points consistently. So I'm going to go with the under in that one. Notre Dame covers against Boise State. If they can do that on the road in an SEC environment, what means they can't do it this week against a weaker opponent? Maryland +6 at home against Washington. Washington is a team we know that struggles on the road. And Maryland's obviously off to a great start, so I like the points there. Kansas 4.5 at UCF. We're going to roll with them again. Maybe I can get lucky this time because fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, then, well, guess we'll just be back at it again, getting fooled. And then my last one is Mississippi State +14.5 at Texas A&M. Can we give Mississippi State their flowers? What they did last week to Tennessee, took them to OT, obviously lost, but no one, and I repeat, no one, not even their own fan base, thought they would be this good this early in this era of what they have at Mississippi State. So all the roses, all the flowers are given to Mississippi State here. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but definitely would be more surprised if they don't cover this than if they do.
All right, I'm starting off with a hometown pick. I'm going with my Western Michigan Broncos minus 13.5. UMass is the worst team in Power Four and probably would be a middle of the road FCS team the way they've looked this year. So it's a lot more about them in this one. I think we can cover the 13.5. I'm going with Purdue +9.5. Illinois, ultimate trap game here. First of all, you got the come down from their big upset over USC. And let's not forget that 2 weeks ago they lost by more than 50 to Indiana. So I'm still not sure how good they are. And Purdue's much improved this year under Barry Odom. So I got them in the points. I'm going Vandy in the points. I'm putting my money on Diego Pavia. I've been doubting him all year, doubting Vandy all year. They keep proving me wrong. So I'm going to jump on the Vandy bandwagon this week. I got Michigan State +11.5. That Nebraska defense showed some holes against Michigan, and Aiden Childs has been throwing the rock much better this year. So I think they can put up some points in that game. Ohio State, I think, waxes Minnesota at home. I'm surprised that line is in the low 20s the way it is. And then I'm going Texas Tech. This would have been a trap game for me. but Houston struggled with 0-4 Oregon State last week. So give me the Red Raiders to keep rolling.
Yeah, and then we'll jump into our first game, and a game that's gonna fly under the radar, but hey, it's Friday night football, so you gotta tune into this one. It's gonna be Western Kentucky and Delaware, and this is a huge game for Conference USA standpoint because Delaware, obviously the new team in the FBS, Western Kentucky, a team that won it last year, and both these teams are looking pretty promising here to possibly win that conference and throw their hat in the ring for the Group of Five team to make the college football playoff. And with that being said, we saw it last year with Jacksonville State. And then there's a team that joins the FBS and just gets on a roll and has a good year. And so far for me, it's looking like it's going to be Delaware, and that's why I'm picking them to win this game.
Yeah, I feel like a traitor here. I love Delaware's helmets as I mean for obvious reasons, but I'm still going with Western Kentucky. Feels like every year they're right up in the top of Conference USA. And I think they give Delaware kind of a welcome to the FBS moment here and they get a road win.
Then we'll move to Saturday. And like I said, I'm going with Iowa State not only to cover, but I'm going to take them to win because this team can be 6-0, probably have one of the quietest 6-0 starts that you're going to hear out of a Power Four school because, Rocco Beck and company are playing really good football. It's not sexy, it's not blowing teams out, but they know that and they know that they can win these games. And that's just their forte and how they win games. They do what they got to do to get the win, and that's all that matters. And I think they go on the road, do the same thing here because that's just their way. They were one game away last year from not only making the Big 12 championship, or sorry, not winning the Big 12 championship, but also making the playoffs. So I think they're putting themselves in that same path yet again this year.
Yeah, this feels weird to say, but I think Iowa State is everything Iowa wants to be on offense. I mean, they have a quarterback who makes the right throws at the right times, but it's usually the run game that gets it done, control the clock, and it just feels like it's everything Iowa's been trying to be the last 5 years. And it's funny that their rival is the team doing it best. And I think that's going to come into play here. I think Iowa State controls the game, doesn't exactly dominate on the scoreboard, but I think they do just enough to win. I think this team is built to go on the road and win these type of games.
And also at 12, we have that game that I took the under in, but I still think Clemson is going to win this game. If they don't, I mean, I don't want to say Dabo is going to seat's going to be even hotter because he definitely won't get fired. At least I don't think he will. Um, but there's going to be some big concerns moving forward. He's going to lose some recruits, and he might not have a choice but to hit the transfer portal uh, come next year. So they got to win this game to at least get back on their feet. But then you look at the other side, and Bill Belichick in North Carolina, they win this game. I mean, a month ago, we'd think, oh my gosh, this might be the biggest upset in college football. And here we are, both these teams 500 or less, and it's a must-win game for both these teams if they even want to sniff a bowl game.
Yeah, if you find yourself watching this game early on Saturday, maybe just, I don't know, go outside, spend some time at the apple orchard or something because it's going to be an ugly football game. Both of these teams, North Carolina didn't have the highest expectations, but they've been awful. Clemson had national championship hopes, and they've been maybe worse. So I just think both of these teams are really just in the gutter right now. Not a lot of good vibes. But as for the game, I think Clemson the talent is there, and it's not really there yet for North Carolina. So I think at least that will show up for Clemson. I think the defense really eats early on the same way TCU did against the Tar Heels, and I think Clemson bounces back. Dabo said they're still playing to have a good season, so let's start it off here with a big win.
Yeah, then moving to that 3:30 slate. Yeah, you're looking at that correctly. I'm taking those Florida Gators to pull off an upset because Texas to me just hasn't proven it. And Florida's played in these huge games already this year. I mean, if you go look at their schedule, look who they've lost to. It's been Miami on the road, it's LSU on the road, and then a close game that you should have beat South Florida in at home. So they finally return home against a better team. And I think this is where they can get one in the SEC schedule because next week they go to A&M, and then after that, it's just a big crapshoot for the schedule. Florida's going to be lucky to get 5 wins this year, but I think they're going to upset someone and shake up the whole SEC standings. And it's just this point where I'm taking the Florida Gators to upset the Longhorns and send them packing.
Yeah, I can see the vision. I think if Florida had any more semblance of an offense, I would be inclined to maybe pick them to pull the upset. I just haven't seen it. I feel like that Miami game for them was really there for the taking, and they just could not make any plays on offense. DJ Lagway has really struggled to start the season. I know Arch Manning has too, but Texas has plenty of other weapons on the offense to get the job done. When he's not playing well, you can't really say the same about Florida. So I think the defense for Texas will cause lots of fits for the Florida offense. I think that'll be the difference. I kind of like the under here, like a 20-10 type of game, but I think the Longhorns win comfortably in the end.
And then on Big Ten Network, I think this is a game that you got to tune into late because it's going to be close. I'm going with the Terrapins at home to move to 5-0. Maybe they have some shades of last year's Indiana team that's not getting talked about, an easier schedule, I guess you could say. Because I mean, you go look in advance after this week, it's Nebraska at home, UCLA on the road, Indiana at home, and then the last three is at Illinois, home against Michigan, at Michigan State. So there's a real chance that if they win one of those three against Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, and win that out, that they could be a playoff team at 10-2. So they got to get this one here at home. I think that it's going to happen and then really turn some heads, but they are going to have to figure it out on the defensive end and trying to stop this Washington offense because, Maryland's offense has been really good this year in their 4 games, but it's a whole new ball game this week. It's not Wisconsin coming to town or not going to Wisconsin this time. You get a better team.
We've seen this movie before with Maryland. I like to call it September Maryland. It seems like many times in the Mike Locksley era, they've started 3 or 4-0 to start the season, and as soon as it flips to October, it just completely changes. And I'm buying into that theory again this year. Maryland has turned a lot of heads in the Big Ten. A lot of people had them towards the bottom, and like you said, they've been off to a very solid start here at 4-0, but we've seen it before. And I think Washington coming off the loss, a lot of people are down on them. And I think they bounce back in a big way. That defense is still very talented for them. And I think they finally start to put it together again on offense here and put up a lot of points here against Maryland. And I think they cover and get away or come away with a comfortable win.
Yeah, then a huge game in the ACC, obviously now with Virginia's upset win last week. And you look at something's wrong with the AP poll. If you've watched Josh Pate and you listen to him, you'll understand my pain here. Why is Virginia ranked at 4-1 and Louisville's 4-0 and not ranked? And they're also favored by a touchdown in this one. Make that make sense to me because I get you have one
Sure.
big win. Louisville's undefeated. I don't really see the resemblance here. And obviously, you and me are both taking Louisville here. So we clearly think Louisville's the better team in this one. I expect them to be ranked, I guess, at this point next week because it will technically be a ranked win if this happens.
Yeah, I could kind of see Louisville just dominating this game. I think if it goes away from that line, I think it'll be in favor of Louisville because it's the ultimate come down game here. Virginia, fastest field storm I've ever seen. It was an electric atmosphere on the Friday night game. And now they have to go on the road to a really underrated Louisville team who may be the second best team in the ACC right now. But we'll talk about that another time. As for this game, I think Louisville continues on their hot streak because unlike Maryland, I think they can still play well in October. I think the Cardinals win and probably win kind of big here.
Yeah, then probably the game you're going to watch at 3:30. It's going to be Vanderbilt and Alabama. And Vandy obviously got revenge for the last 30 years last year, beating Alabama at home and really killing their chances to make the college football playoff. And now it's kind of the same story. Vandy can do the same thing, you know, get to 6-0. They can go into Alabama somehow, some way. If they escape with a victory, I mean, Vanderbilt's a top 10, maybe even top 5 team in the country, depending on how you rank teams. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Ty Simpson proved to me last week that you can go on the road, beat Georgia, and play really good and not even score in the second half and still find a way to beat Georgia on the road. You're doing something right. And I think that get right game was last week against Georgia. And oh yeah, like I said, they got a big chip on their shoulder in this one. So I expect Alabama to come out guns a-blazing and probably put this one away heading into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think in the Saban era, this would have been a game where, Vandy's a cute story. They go in and they just get absolutely waxed in this game. But I think this is going to go a little differently. I think this will be a close game into the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt deserves a lot more respect than they've been getting by the outside college football viewers. I don't think, I think people just see that logo and don't really expect much out of them. But This team is for real. Their coach is for real. And I think they're going to give Alabama all they can handle. But that being said, I think the Tide are officially back. I mean, they looked much, much better in the two games following the Florida State loss. And then last week, obviously, just put it all together, come away with a huge win. And I think this team's really rolling behind Ty Simpson. So I think Vanderbilt puts up a valiant effort and covers, but I think the Tide come away with the win at home.
And at 4, a big Big Ten matchup on Fox Sports 1. Michigan State faces Nebraska. And I'm going Nebraska here at home strictly because of Dylan Raiola. I mean, Raiola in this offense, they average 350 passing yards a game, which is second in the country. And, the story about Michigan State's secondary keeps on living for the last 3, 4 years because they're 115th in the nation, giving up 263 passing yards a game. And if you're going against a guy that averages 350 a game, that normally never ends well. So that's all I got to look at in this one. Battle of quarterbacks. I'll take Raiola any day of the week. So give me Nebraska.
I almost feel like I'm missing something with that over under being below 50 because I think this will be another shootout type of game for Michigan State because Aiden Childs has played really well. He's been slinging the rock for Michigan State. And obviously, we're both Michigan fans. We've watched Dylan Raiola kind of carve up our defense a little bit, even though we came away with the win. So I think both of the quarterbacks are going to have some success in this game. But I think that Nebraska defense is just a step above Michigan State. So I think they win by about a touchdown here. Obviously, I picked the Spartans to cover, but I think Nebraska does come away with a win because they're actually starting to win these close games.
Yeah, then at 7, we got a huge Mountain West game. UNLV undefeated, Wyoming 2-2. But in conference play, this Wyoming team's looking for a fresh start. And I like UNLV here on the road, but give Wyoming credit. They limited Utah to 3 points in the first half, and then obviously it unraveled in the second half. They had held Colorado scoreless on the road for the first quarter, unraveled in the second, and really it was a fair game after that. So I think this game is going to be a little better than most people think in this one. But, Dan Mullen and what he's doing there at UNLV, because we thought that first game against Idaho State, like, uh-oh, there's going to be a problem here. But if you look at every score, 3 out of their 4 games they've won have been a one possession game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do stumble here and lose this one. But, it's the famous saying, you can't pick against an undefeated team at this point.
I'll throw in too. Remember, they had the big home win over UCLA.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's not looking quite as good now. But I do think they go on the road and win this one. I think Wyoming's offense has been pretty brutal to start the year. I want to say they had like a 10-6 game with Akron to start their season. So I think UNLV's offense is
10
going to put up
nothing.
10
10
nothing. Oof.
nothing.
Ugly. Glad I didn't watch. I think UNLV's offense will have just enough in this game. I don't think Wyoming is going to be able to quite keep up. And again, I'm not quite sure how good UNLV really is because their wins aren't holding up super well so far. But I do think they get to 5-0 and maybe run the table in the Mountain West.
And talking about running the table, that's kind of what Texas Tech is doing right now in the Big 12, just putting up points on everybody. Obviously, had a bye last week, but before going to Utah and just light them up in the fourth quarter when their starting quarterback goes down. And it was good to see, Hammond come in there and just light it up there. But this is a different story here. Houston is a good story so far this year, going 4-0. But the big story is going to be Texas Tech's passing offense because this team averages 52 points a game, almost 400 yards passing, where the defense for Houston only gives up 140 passing yards a game. So it's going to be a battle through the air and might even be decided in the trenches. And if that's the case, I just think Texas Tech has shown me so far this year that they're better than their teams on the road. And I expect them to win this game.
Yeah, I've had a ton of really bad takes here to start the season. So I do want to point out I had Houston as my surprise team in the Big 12 at 8-4, and it's aging well so far. But last week has me worried. Going to Oregon State, who was 0-4, and it came down to a game-winning field goal in that game. So now you got to turn around
In
and
OT.
play in
In OT.
overtime. Yeah,
Mhm.
and now you got to play clearly the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion. So huge upgrade in competition this week, and I think that's going to show. Texas Tech has already been in one of the toughest road environments in college football. going to Utah, coming away with a dominant win. So I don't think they'll be intimidated at all by this night game atmosphere. So I think the Red Raiders go in and win comfortably. I picked them to cover, and I feel pretty good about that.
And if you want fireworks at night, this is going to be your game. I would hammer that over if you love the bet overs. I didn't put it in my pick six, but this was my honorable mention here. These teams are going to light up the scoreboard. Mississippi State obviously loves to score, put up 34 last week against Tennessee. Texas A&M coming off of a bad sluggish week, but we know what they did against Notre Dame's defense. So I like the points, like I said, from Mississippi State. It's just going to be high flying, but end of the day, I think A&M does just enough and gets that one stand late in the fourth to walk away with the victory.
Yeah, I'll give Mississippi State their flowers, just like you said. What would the spread have been last year if it was Mississippi State? Probably 40. I mean, that was a two-win team. So I think just the improvement they're off to this far definitely deserves some recognition. But I think Texas A&M has been very impressive through 4 games. I think that Notre Dame win is going to age extremely well throughout the season. So I think Marcel Reed is the real deal. That defense is for real. And I think A&M kind of gives Mississippi State some fits early. But like I said, the Bulldogs much improved. I think they can hang around for a while, but the Aggies pull away late.
Yeah, and then the last game we got for you this week, it's Miami and Florida State, and I'm curious what the spread would be if Florida State were to win last week. I think it might be at 1.5 maybe. Because you're pretty much getting 2 or 3 points for being the home team here. So really Vegas thinks that Miami's really a touchdown favorite here in this one. And I wouldn't be surprised because Carson Beck in that offense, yeah, he struggled at times throwing some interceptions, but they've proven to me and proven to the media that they can not only win the big game early against Notre Dame, of course, they go in and destroy South Florida at home, with all the hype around them. And then you go and face Florida at home and stifle that offense and look mediocre, maybe a little better. And I expect this offense to explode onto the seam here against Florida State because what Florida State did last week at Virginia, giving up that many points, really worries me here. Really means that maybe we need to pump the brakes on Florida State here. But I'm all in on Miami at this point. If this team had Cam Ward this year with him, what he was doing last year, him and Carson Beck are kind of comparable in that sense. Miami here to the moon because if you look at their schedule moving forward, they get Louisville out of their bye the week after, and that probably is their toughest game remaining on the schedule. So these two games, this one and the next one for Miami, are pretty much going to decide if they're going to go to the ACC championship.
Yeah, I just have some bad feelings here about Florida State. You'll probably remember this. You're a Packers fan. There was a year they got smoked by the Saints week one, like 38-3, I think. Ended
Mhm.
up as the 1 seed, and everyone's like, how did that happen? I think we're gonna look back at Florida State, Alabama like that when we get to the end of the season. I think it was more of a fluky game than anything. Obviously, Alabama right back to where we thought they were gonna be, and now the Seminoles coming off a loss to Virginia where they really regressed. And I think it's going to be more of the same this week. I think Miami, even having to go on the road in a big rivalry game, I think the vibes have completely shifted for Florida State. And it'll be more of the same if they lose this week. And I think Miami, like you said, that Miami offense should have a big game against a defense that struggled with Virginia. So I think Miami wins by about 10, and there's going to be a lot of question marks coming out of Tallahassee.
Yeah, that's going to be it for our week 6 predictions. Check back next week to see how we did, and we'll be giving you our halfway mark of our college football playoff bracket and kind of what we think it's going to be. We'll be doing that, kind of like the committee does every week and ranking those teams and breaking that down for you guys. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.